Hello aspirants, welcome to Insights IAS Daily Current Affairs for your exam preparation. Alright, so for today's session, we have 5 important topics to cover. We'll start with carbon capture and utilization, then the International Climate Initiative, followed by large language models, El Nino, and finally the speaker of the Knesset medal. Let us begin with the first topic. Right, our first topic is carbon capture and utilization, which you'll often see abbreviated as CCU. So, why is this in the news? Well, the center has allocated a very significant amount, rupees 20,000 crore in the union budget to scale up these CCUS technologies. This clearly shows it's a major focus area for policy now. So let's first get the basic concept clear. What is CCU? It's basically a set of technologies that capture carbon dioxide emissions. These emissions could be coming from industrial sources like a power plant or even directly from the atmosphere itself. But the keyword to focus on here is utilization. Unlike just storing the carbon away, CCU is about converting that captured carbon dioxide into useful, commercially valuable products. So it treats carbon not as waste but as a resource, which is the fundamental idea of a circular carbon economy. The whole process generally happens in 3 main stages. The first stage, logically, is capture. This is where the carbon dioxide is separated out from other gases. The second stage is compression and transport. The captured carbon dioxide is compressed, making it dense and easier to move through pipelines or in tankers. And the third most important stage is conversion or utilization. This is where the captured carbon dioxide is used as a raw material, a feedstock, to create new products. Now, this utilization can take several forms. There are 4 main types. First, we have direct utilization. Here, the carbon dioxide is used as it is, without any chemical change, like for making fizzy drinks or in a process called enhanced oil recovery. Second is chemical conversion, where the carbon dioxide is chemically transformed to create things like urea for fertilizers or fuels like methanol. The third type is biological conversion. This uses microorganisms like algae or bacteria, which consume the carbon dioxide to create biomass, which can then be turned into biofuels or animal feed. And finally, there's mineralization. This involves reacting carbon dioxide with minerals to form stable, solid carbonates, which can be used to make things like construction bricks. Okay, now from a prelims point of view, what are the key takeaways? First, remember that CCU technologies can be retrofitted, meaning they can be added to existing power plants. Second, it promotes a circular economy. Third, it has a wide range of applications, from aviation to construction to agriculture. But the most crucial point for your exam is understanding the difference between CCU and CCS. CCS is carbon capture and storage. You just bury the carbon dioxide. CCU, however, is about generating revenue by creating products you can sell. This distinction is a classic area for a potential question. Let's move to our second topic, the International Climate Initiative or IKI. The reason it's in the news is because a new project, a large grant project worth 20 million euros, has just been launched between Germany and India. The goal is to strengthen India's resilience to climate change. So, what exactly is the IKI? It's a very important financial instrument of the German government. Please make a mental note of that. It's a German initiative. It was set up back in 2008. And its purpose is to fund projects related to climate and biodiversity, specifically in developing and emerging countries. And to be clear, Germany is the sole donor for this initiative. While it works with many nations, it has identified 14 countries as priority partner countries. And yes, India is one of them. The main goal of the IKI is to help these partner countries achieve their climate goals, specifically their nationally determined contributions or NDCs under the Paris Agreement, as well as their biodiversity goals. Now let's look at the key features you should remember. The IKI focuses on 4 main areas: mitigation, adaptation, protecting carbon sinks, and preserving biodiversity. Projects are usually implemented not by governments directly, but by consortiums of organizations. Think NGOs, research institutes, and so on. Now, there is a term here that is very important for prelims: ecosystem-based adaptation, or EBA. This is a core part of the IKI philosophy. It simply means using nature and ecosystems to help people adapt to climate change. A good example would be restoring mangrove forests to protect coastlines. And what about this specific new project between India and Germany? Well, it targets some of our most ecologically sensitive regions: the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, Northeast India, our island regions, and the lower Gangetic floodplains. The work itself will focus on activities like forest restoration, recharging groundwater, flood control, and creating crucial biodiversity corridors for wildlife movement. Alright, next up, a topic from science and tech: large language models, or LLMs. This is in the news because a Bengaluru-based startup called Sarvam AI has just launched 2 indigenous LLMs. This is being seen as a really significant step for India's ambitions in achieving what's called sovereign AI. So, what is an LLM? At its core, it's a type of artificial intelligence that has been trained on truly massive amounts of text data. Why are they called large? Because they have billions of internal variables, and the technical term for these is parameters. You can think of these parameters as the network of connections that the model learns, which allows it to understand grammar, context, and facts to generate text that sounds very human. So how does it actually work? Well, in simple terms, first it breaks down any text into smaller pieces called tokens. Then, using an architecture called a transformer, it maps out the relationship between all these tokens. A key part of this is something called a self-attention mechanism. This helps the model figure out which words in a sentence are the most important for understanding the context, and based on that context, it predicts the next most likely token or word, generating language step by step. The training process for an LLM happens in 3 main stages. The first is called pre-training. Here, the model learns from a huge amount of raw, unlabeled data from the internet. This is how it learns general grammar, facts, and language patterns. The second stage is fine-tuning. In this stage, the pre-trained model is then trained on a smaller, specific, high-quality data set to get good at a particular task. For prelims, the difference between general pre-training and specific fine-tuning is a concept worth remembering. And the third stage is RLHF, or reinforcement learning from human feedback, where humans review and rate the AI's responses to make it more helpful and safe. Let's look at the key features of these models. Of course, they have generative capability. They can create new original content. They can do in-context learning, which means they can understand and follow instructions given in a prompt. They are multilingual, but a very important term you should note for the exam is zero-shot reasoning. What does this mean? It's the amazing ability of an LLM to solve a problem it was never explicitly trained for, just by applying its general knowledge. This is a term that could easily show up in a question. Our fourth topic takes us to geography and environment. We are talking about El Niño. It's in the news because a new study has found something interesting, that the salinity of the ocean can actually intensify an El Niño event by about 20%. Let's quickly revise the basic concept of El Niño. It is a recurring climate pattern, and its defining feature is the unusual warming of ocean surface waters. Now, the location is very important to remember. This happens in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. It's also useful to know that El Niño is considered the warm phase of a much larger cycle known as the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. The best way to understand how El Niño forms is to compare normal conditions with what happens during an El Niño event. Normally, you have strong trade winds blowing from east to west across the Pacific, pushing warm surface water towards Asia. This allows cold, deep water to rise up near the coast of South America, a process we call upwelling. But during an El Niño, these trade winds weaken or sometimes even reverse. When that happens, the huge pool of warm water that was piled up in the western Pacific starts to flow back eastward. Towards the Americas, And this massive shift in warm water is what disrupts weather patterns all over the world. There are several factors that influence El Niño. The primary driver, as we saw, is the weakening of the trade winds. This then creates a feedback loop called ocean-atmosphere coupling. The depth of the thermocline, that's the boundary between the warm surface water and the cold deep water, is also a key factor. And finally, there are large internal ocean waves called Rossby and Kelvin waves, which are responsible for moving heat across the vast Pacific Ocean. Now, what about the impact on India? It is very direct and very significant. A strong El Niño is known to suppress a summer monsoon. In fact, data shows there is a 60% chance of drought in parts of India during a strong El Niño year. This, as you know, directly affects our agriculture, our economy, and can lead to food inflation. El Niño years are also associated with more frequent and more intense heat waves across the country. And for our final topic today, we turn to international relations. The item is the Speaker of the Knesset medal. The context here is that the Israeli parliament, which is called the Knesset, has conferred this honor on India's Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, for his role in strengthening strategic ties between the two countries. So what is this medal? It is the highest honor that is given by the Israeli parliament, and from a prelims perspective, it is important to note that this is a parliamentary distinction. It is awarded by the Speaker of the Knesset, not by the executive branch or the government of Israel. It is given to people who have made exceptional contributions to Israel and the Jewish people. It's also a good time to revise some key facts about the Knesset itself. The Knesset is Israel's national legislature. The single most important fact you must remember for prelims is that it is a unicameral legislature. It has only one house. UPSC often frames questions to check if you know this. Members are elected for a 4-year term through a system of proportional representation. It is this electoral system that often leads to coalition governments in Israel. So the two key terms to remember are unicameral and proportional representation. For your note-making, a simple tip for today's topics: you can group CCU, IKI, LLMs, and El Niño under your GS3 notes for environment and science and tech. The Knesset medal would fit well under GS2 inches international relations. For the full current affairs article and daily current affairs MCQs, visit insightsonindia.com through the link in the description. Also, subscribe to our Insights IAS YouTube channel and join our official Telegram group using the link provided in the description for all free and important updates related to the UPSC exam. Thank you.